All right. Hello, everybody. We are back. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to another episode of the Barter Black Podcast. I am Nicole Murphy, your host, and I am thrilled to have you join us. But first, let me give you a quick rundown of what Barter Black is all about. Barter Black is not just a podcast, it's a vibrant community dedicated to empowering Black entrepreneurs and creators. We believe in sharing stories, insights, and expertise to uplift each other in a world of Black entrepreneurship. If you have a unique story or perspective to share or valuable insights in the world of business, I personally invite you to come and host an episode right here on the Barter Black podcast. The link is in the show notes. It's a platform to shine, inspire, and educate others. So before we dive into today's conversation, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the Barter Black YouTube channel. If you're as excited as I am for the incredible insights we are about to share, please take a moment to like and share this episode. Let's make sure everyone you know can benefit from the amazing information we're about to delve into. And tonight, I'm just so happy when our guest tonight decided to sign up for an episode because this is one of the things we all struggle with. We're like, we're not making enough money. I can't do this. I can't do that. Why can't you do that? Pricing. So I'm so excited to talk about pricing. And tonight we have Erica Lane with us. Thank you so much for joining us. She is known to the world as the Money Elevation Strategist. Erica Lane has developed an exceptional profit management approach for entrepreneurs, which enabled her to triple her income in only 3 years using what is now her profitable entrepreneur money makeover program. Erica consistently provides entrepreneurs with education, resources, and community to manage and maximize profit through actionable profit planning, realistic budget, and numerical based pricing. Hey, Erica, thanks and welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Look, I know everyone struggles with it, even if they don't know they're struggling with pricing. They might think it's something else in their business that they're struggling with, and they don't necessarily think that it's a pricing issue. So can you first share with us your journey and what led you to become the money elevation strategist?
Sure. It's not a pretty story, but it is a story. So, numbers have always been my thing. My mother was a math teacher. So, we were always talking about numbers in our household. So, math was my favorite subject. And I loved all things money from when I was a kid. I was the kid that was selling something as a kid. So, entrepreneurship was just like, it was the thing that was going to happen. But honestly, I had built a business and it was in blood, sweat, and tears, right? And grossed $750,000 annually and thought I was balling out of control. I was taking trips, I was on vacation, I was shopping till we dropped, my daughter and I, until it all came crashing down. Like, just honestly, it did. And I went from that kind of money to having to go into a social services office to ask
Mm,
them to help me to put food on my table and a roof over our head. That is a drastic change.
yeah.
And it was in that change that I realized I had to take better care of the money that I had. And I had to make sure that I was able to budget, able to get my debt down, able to get out of the life that I was in. And I didn't want to be there anymore. And so it was just a matter of just doing the work. And sometimes that's the hardest part, is just doing the work. And eventually I got myself out and people started to see what I was doing for myself. And they were like, hey, can you help me do that same thing for myself? And at some point, I realized that I was doing a lot of helping and there should be some checks in that help. And so I created a business and I was helping entrepreneurs more often than not with their professional finances and also their personal, because oftentimes, you have to deal with both. And so I was doing that. I started this business, and I was able to triple my own income while helping a whole bunch of others. And so the Money Elevation Strategist was born.
I mean, we were talking before the show about everyone, having a story in entrepreneurship and not knowing what they're going through at the time that they're going through it. But we come and put that smile on our face, right?
Every time.
We come and put that smile on our face because this is something that we definitely want to do, but it's hard to do. So when you submitted your episode, you said facts, not feelings, pricing.
Mm. Mm.
How do we get there? Facts, not feelings. I felt that one.
That felt different in your spirit, didn't it? Because here's what I want you to know, entrepreneurs. A lot of times, what happens is we're emotionally tied to our business because usually it's our baby, and we're usually our first customer, and we're the person who we've built this business around, and we've also invested money into it. And so it's our one thing that we hold on to tight. But the thing about pricing is it should not be emotional. It should just be numerical. It is if then. And one thing I always say, my girlfriend laughs at me all the time when I say this, but I say this all the time. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. They don't lie. So if you put the numbers incorrectly, then it should spit out an outcome. And when it spits out that outcome, it either is or it isn't. There is no feelings involved, just facts. That's where that came from. Facts, not feelings.
Just facts. So, in your experience, though, why are we basing it off of feelings and not basing it off of the facts? Do we not have the facts? What is it that we're missing when we're going in to start these businesses or run these businesses, and we have to determine how much we're going to charge? Because, like you said, you were doing stuff for people, but not getting paid for it. But you had to switch that around and put a price on it. So, why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. Number one, I think people just don't know what they don't know. And so they're like, you know what? I'm just going to charge X because I just need this little bit of money, to do what I'm doing, not
Right.
realizing all of the things that come along with running a business. Number two is that they don't understand their own expenses. So oftentimes when entrepreneurs come to me, I have to show them this is what you're charging and this is what you're spending. And there's a huge difference in the amount because there's a lot of items that entrepreneurs do not think about when they think about cost. When you think about cost, most people may think about, oh, I may think about, maybe my internet services. Maybe you may think about, where you're running your business from, if you have rent or things like that, the physical bills that they get in every month. That's what most people are thinking about. But there's a lot more cost to running a business. You have a couple of things like apps, and there's a lot of them that we have that we are paying for, and most of, if we honest, we're not using most of them, or we have multiple apps that do the same thing. I had a client, we saved her about $400 a month in her business because she had a whole bunch of apps that all did the same thing. It was like she had multiple customer relationship managers. um, I think she had ConvertKit, she had Keep, and she had the one with the monkey. I can't remember what that one is, but at any rate, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mailchimp. I think
Mailchimp,
that's
Mailchimp. They did listen. They were good because I remember there was a monkey,
right.
but she had multiple things that do the same. All three of those things do the same thing. One may do one thing or so better than the other, but they all do the same thing, which means you're paying three times for the same thing every single month. And that's
Mhm.
just one example of one of the things. So I think sometimes it's you don't really realize what your expenses are, and oftentimes people don't want to look at those expenses because they're like, whew, it's a little exhausting, or it's a little scary to really start to dig into the numbers. And so when people work with me, I dig into the numbers and show them exactly where they're spending their money. And sometimes it's also too things like I did a top 10 list, and I really didn't realize how many items I had that people don't think about. But I did a top 10 list, and one of the things that a lot of people don't think about is their licensing for their business. People don't add that into their budget. They're just like, oh, I just pay that every whatever your state requires. My state, it's annual. For some states, I know, they do it in every couple of years or so on and so forth. So it's thinking about those things, and you have to add all of those things up to figure out how much is in your is your expenses. So I think it's people don't want to know. Then also too, people just don't know their numbers, and that's critical when you're thinking about budgeting and finance and pricing. It's knowing your numbers, because once you know those numbers, baby, it's powerful.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about, getting all the numbers together, I remember when I was about to launch Barter Black, and I had priced the tickets for the event, and my coach was like, "Okay, so how much does this event cost?" And when she set me down and we did those numbers, she was like, "Girl,
I'm making no
I'm not gonna
money.
pay for this event.
Right.
that, that is not going to pay for this event. What are you doing?"
So a lot of times we don't know that, because we often assume, oh, I've just got to pay for the place. I've just got to pay for the people who are going to help me, not all the other things that are involved in it. Oftentimes we don't even put ourselves in the mix of the pricing, and you might be doing all the work. And so if I could tell you how many times I've had to go, so how are you getting paid in this scenario?
Yeah,
People look at me with a blank stare, like, uh. And so, it's a lot that goes into that. And don't get me wrong, budgeting when you first do it, it's a lot because you got to pull all of the paperwork. But the moment that you do it, there's a power inside of it, because now you can adequately price, and okay, I need to do X amount of things, to meet my target numbers. Because here's the disconnect: people are making goals, but they don't know their numbers to make the goals happen. And
yeah,
then you get frustrated at the end of the year when you haven't hit the goals. Well, the reason why you haven't hit the goals is because you don't have the numbers. So you don't know exactly how much of these things you need to hit those goal and target numbers. Or when you go and you do the things and you're like, oh my gosh, I said I was supposed to sell 20, I sold 20. But wait a minute, I don't have the money that I'm supposed to have. And that's because there's a leak in the system. And
mm,
usually it's because you don't have your expenses in order every single month, understanding what's coming out every single month, everything. And I tell my clients, when you do budgeting with me, we go talk about everything. Everything. I want everything, including that meal that you had with that client. Yep, that too. Oh, okay. Including the internet services that you pay for. Yep, that too. Everything that you pay for that you would not pay for if you were not an entrepreneur. That is what you need to put in your budget. And once you do that the first time, and don't get me wrong, numbers will change every now and again. But
yeah,
once you do it the first time, more often than not, you're in a space where you're like, okay, great. And now I take you through a formula so that you can price consistently every time without fail. And once you do that, honey, it's a matter of time for you to get it right.
trial and error. There we go.
That's it.
So,
That's it. And then you can just go forward and price your products or services and be able to be comfortable in that price, and not, hey, it's gonna be $5,000. You gotta say pricing with your chest. With your chest. You gotta say with your chest. It's gonna be $5,000 for that. And here's what I'm gonna do for that $5,000. Here's what's not involved in that $5,000. But here's what I can add on for you, and adding that on will get you to 10,000. And I can do all of the things that you want to do.
mm, mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We need people all up in our business to make sure that we are pricing correctly. So do you have to figure out pricing before you start?
Here's my advice. Okay. My advice is to budget first because you need to know what your expenses are in order to correctly price. You absolutely have to budget first. Then you do pricing. Make
Mhm.
sure that your pricing is accurate. You have the formula to price the same way each and every time. Once you have that in order, now we can go back to those audacious and wonderful goals that you set and see if they're realistic. Because sometimes we set these goals that are unrealistic based on our pricing, but our pricing is not in order based on our budget. So we have to get the budget first, get the pricing next, and then go back to the goals and make sure that the goals are realistic for what we can achieve. There's nothing wrong with stretching yourself, so you should. But there's a difference between stretching and unrealistic.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah, and I love that you keep mentioning budget because that's one of the things that I focus on too when it comes to bartering. Like you need to know what you're spending so you can know where you can save. so so it just makes sense, but how do you approach helping entrepreneurs shift their mindset towards pricing when they just want to go, go, go and sell, sell, sell? Some are not selling, but how do you shift that mindset to focus on pricing being the start of your goals and your success when you're trying to grow and start and operate a business?
Sure. So I asked this one question: do you want to do it fast, or do you want to do it right?
Mm,
Do you want to do it fast, or do you want to do it right? Because if you want to do it fast, go ahead, go out there. But I'm telling you, you're gonna come back and have to do it all over again. My father, ex-military. I come from a very military family. Shout out to all those who serve. Thank you for your service. Um, but my father always said to measure twice and cut once. Right? Do it right the first time, so you never have to do it again. Now, pricing you may have to do, depending on how your business changes and evolves and all
yeah.
of those things, you may have to do that again. But I will say to you, um, for me, mindset is most of the work. Just if I can be y'all feel me now. Like I can be honest with y'all. It's most of the work. Like if I can, I can get people's mind wrapped around doing the pricing part right the first time before we go
Hmm.
out there in these streets and just start naming prices. Because here's what I want you to know: you can always go down in pricing. Going up is always an issue, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit difficult unless you're going incrementally, because obviously, things change. You have to go up in pricing every now and again. But also too, it stops you knowing your numbers and knowing your pricing accurately. It stops you from overextending yourself. It
Mm,
stops you from being burnt out. It stops you from taking on too much work that you cannot handle. It stops you from doing all of those things. Now, are there other situations that happen that can still cause those things? Yes. But we have to put in position the things that we can control. And part of what we can control is our mindset about money, our mindset about pricing. We can control those things because again, it's just numbers. So we put the numbers in, it will computate, and then the numbers will spill it out. It's going to say what it needs to be. But what happens is people are rushing out to say, okay, I'm just going to put this on the market. Tiffany's, and this is one Tiffany's is selling a paper clip for $400. So my stuff is a little more expensive, but if Tiffany's can do it, I can do it. Here's the problem. Number one, Tiffany's has a huge brand. They do. And they also have a luxury brand. They know exactly who they're speaking to. And so the problem that most entrepreneurs, or I see that most entrepreneurs have, is they are looking at other brands and saying, "Oh, if they can pay, if they can charge this, I can charge this." But you don't know the variables in their business. You don't know the numbers that are in their business. You don't know if their cousin is the person that gets them their products or services. So you may not have a cousin that does that. So there's a lot of variables that come into play. And so we have to be careful about that. So for me, I help people shift their mindset by just telling them the truth. One thing about me is you're going to get the truth all the time. You may not like it. I love you with a hug.
You gonna
But
thank you later.
right, you're going to thank me later because honestly, I wish I would have understood pricing before I started my business. Because the people who I was helping in the beginning, ooh, they got over. They got over big time, right? And even now, I don't price the same way that my colleagues price. I have people who I've been coached by people who look at my pricing and go, "Girl, you could be charging," and I could, but that's not who I'm looking. I'm looking to help people. Now they have to invest in themselves for that help. Let's just be honest about that. But I will say I don't charge what my counterparts charge because it's not about them. Yes, you should do research, know what your counterparts are charging because you don't want to be too low. But people
Mhm.
like, I don't believe you could really do what you say you're doing at that price. But you also don't want to be too high where you have no clients because that's awkward, but you want to make sure that you can cover everything that you have in your business because your business at some point should be able to sustain stuff. Now, it may not be able to do that in the beginning. You may be doing a lot more investing in the beginning of your business, but
Mhm.
it has to sustain itself. And the way that it does that is by you factoring everything that it needs, including you, in pricing.
Say top secret includes you.
Boggles my brain, y'all. Like you the secret sauce, like the secret sauce, and you're not in the pricing. And so, I mean, definitely talk with your CPA. I got a disclaimer: talk to your CPA, right? Of how you do from a tax perspective. I am not a tax accountant, and so I want to be clear about that. But understand it, and nor am I a payroll accountant. But understand how you do it is up to them. All I care about is the fact that you do it, that you account for you and your work. Now, whether you decide to be an employee, whether you decide, you want to give yourself a 1099, whatever that is, that's fine. But you need to make sure that your effort, your work is paid for. And in some states, and I know this for a fact, in some states, there's a requirement that you pay your CEO a certain wage. So remember, when we talk about these titles and fanciness and stuff like that, there are some implications in payroll for that. Is all I'm going to say about that. I'll get off that soapbox, but
Well, I mean, it was two things that came up for me in what you said. One, I was talking to my son last week sometime, and I don't know how we got on pricing, but I said you'll hear people say, "Oh, that's expensive" at a store or something like that. They're taking into account all their expenses. They're all their expenses, all their employees. They're making sure that they can hire and consistently pay their employees on a regular basis based on their pricing. So that made me think of that when you said that, and we are just not doing that.
we have to, because that's the only thing that's going to create sustainability. First and foremost, I tell my entrepreneurs, you're hiring someone, you should have 3 to 6 months of their salary set aside because we don't want to be hiring folks and we can't pay them. That that's not okay. That's not okay. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, when people are working for small businesses, it's because they are usually burnt out of corporate America. We do not want to be a hot mess, that can't pay them because we're responsible for their livelihood. I don't know about anybody else, but I take that very seriously when I'm responsible for someone's livelihood because it's not just about me.
Right.
I'm responsible for you, your children, how they eat, all of those things. And so we have to be responsible. And so, we should have about 3 to 6 months of their salary put away before we let them sign on the dotted line. Okay, so we're ready. It's in the budget. So, but also too, I do this thing where I help entrepreneurs plan out their full fiscal year because oftentimes corporate America is the biggest cheat code. Watch what they do what they do. Trust me,
Mhm.
the good stuff, the good stuff, not the bad stuff, the good stuff, and you a lot. And so every year they do these on sites, off sites, corporate on sites, because they're planning for the rest of the year, figuring out what their budgets are. They
Right.
do it every year. I don't know why entrepreneurs think that they shouldn't have a budget when corporate America has a budget. They've got way more money, but for bad or for good, they do. And so I take my entrepreneurs through that because I need to ensure that you're able to play, that you're able to scale your business. And if you're thinking about growth, what does that look like numerically? Because everybody's excited to get team. And listen, get help, get your team. I'm an advocate. Trust me, get
Yes.
your team.
Me too.
But be able to pay them, and be able to pay them a living wage, be able to pay them, consistently, all of those things. But that's all inside of how we budget for our fiscal year. And so I talk about all of that um, as well. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So the other thing that came up, and it's so crazy how budget brings up all these things when you said you're burnt out. And too many times in entrepreneurship, I hear booked and busy, and it's like, well, wait a minute, that's not the goal. I'm gonna let you have your post. I'm not gonna respond, but that's not the goal. Or is it? I mean, how do you get people out of that mindset? I have no idea. But I don't want to be working like a slave in my own business for years to come. I need to be creating some type of system where I am bringing in enough revenue to pay other people to do it, or where I can work a certain amount of days and hours and I'm not booked and busy.
yeah. Booked and busy is like the nightmare for me. Like that. What? What? No, honestly, people say all these things, and it sounds good, but
Sounds good.
you need to look through what sounds good versus what is good. And so for me, it's all about asking entrepreneurs this one question from the beginning, and it frightens the heck out of most people. But the question is, what do you want? What do you want? Like, be clear about what it is you want. Everybody's business is not the same. And success for one person is a nightmare for another. Somebody is like, yes, booked and busy all the time. I'm ready to move, shake, do all those things. I would I would cry because
Yeah.
I am not just an entrepreneur. I am somebody's mother. I am somebody's daughter. I am somebody's fiance. I'm all of these things to all these other people. And so for me, a business is not about, hustle mode, grind, grind, grind. It is about setting up the infrastructure to build something that doesn't need me at some point. My job in my business, I'm not telling you this is your business, but I'm telling you in my business, my job is to fire me from everything inside this business. That is my job. I got one assignment. One. And that one assignment is to fire me from every role that I play in this business. And so, but that's for me. For me, Global Profit Solutions at some point is going to be on a glass window someday where people walk through and go, "I work here every day." Right? I come to work every day, Monday through Friday, and there's a whole bunch of folks. But Erica just comes in, waves her hat. Hi, y'all doing? Everything's okay. Great. You need to fix a few problems, say a few words, do a team rally. Yes. And walks out. Like, that to me, that's my goal for my business. But my question to a lot of entrepreneurs, and whenever people work with me, is what is it that you want? Like, what does success mean to you? Because if success means to you that you are jet setting all around the world, and you are every 5 minutes you got to call, every minute you got to do something. If that's what success looks like to you, then okay, let's go with that. But for the most part, everyone who's ever told me that's what success looks like to them, in about a year or two, 3 or 4, they tired. They tired because
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the people still need you. And so you have to decide what's best for you. And if that's what it looks like for you, booked and busy, hey, do you? That- Mm-mm,
No,
mm-mm.
I'm with that. I'm with that too. And then I always tell people to think about, which they don't think about, but we've all gone through it. Something happens in your family. You're booked and busy. You have to cancel things because you have created a space where it's just you doing all the things.
Not
Like,
sustainable.
it's not sustainable, and it I mean, hopefully you'll get to the point where we have to start creating sustainability, and like you said, fire yourself from your business. Like,
Yeah. I
sis,
got one job. One job. And I mean, I want to be. I do not want to be booked and busy. I don't want
no,
to be
I
that.
don't either.
I definitely want to be purposeful and profitable, though.
Mhm.
That I want to be purposeful and profitable, but I don't want
Amen.
to be booked and busy. They can have that. Because I've been that. Let me just.
Me too.
We could be real. We be family now.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I've been that. I have been everywhere all the time. But oftentimes, when you everywhere all the time, oftentimes you're not getting paid for a lot of that stuff. And what happens is the people who love you are only getting a percentage of you, a piece of you.
Hmm.
And usually it's not the big piece, it's the small
Yeah.
piece. And so then you're gonna have issues in your household, in your relationships, whether they are friendships, because friendships are relationships and they tough, you know. They tough. And you have to deal with that. But I would say you don't want that, honestly. I want to be
Yeah.
purposeful and profitable. I do not want to be booked and busy. I don't want to be whatever. Uh, Up until the capacity, whatever that capacity is, but also too, that's also in understanding boundaries. Profit
Yeah.
being profitable and also pricing helps you create boundaries around yourself because you can only do but so much. And you have to be honest about that, but also too, the money that's coming in can sustain you. So part of
Mhm.
pricing is understanding what sustainability looks like. How do you sustain from the money that you're making from your business? How do you sustain whether you are a full-time entrepreneur or whether you are part-time, whichever it
Yeah.
is and whatever that looks like for you?
Yeah. So what are some common misconceptions um or challenges that entrepreneurs face when it comes to pricing their products and services?
Common misconceptions is, well, I got to get this product out now, so I'm just going to price it wherever I'm going to price it, and it's going to be fine. And the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that you may not have really tested your target market yet. You may not have put yourself in position to where you're able to look at your numbers. You may not have done any of that, but because it looks good, you're ready to run. I've been there, y'all. So this is experience. I've been there when I just launched something, just launched it, and didn't really understand how much it cost to launch and what it was costing my team, what it was costing me, what it was costing. Trust me, you want to do the pricing first. Another thing is people feel like, well, the only thing I need to do is look at my competitors. I said this earlier, look at my competitors and just price right below them so that people can come running to me. And the reality is that's not the case. People will buy into you as a person. They feel like you can teach them something. They feel like you are someone who's knowledgeable about what they're talking about. They feel like, oh, this is somebody I know, like, and trust. Then they will come to you. It doesn't matter, right, if your pricing is a little bit more than theirs. In fact, I have a coach who her pricing is a little higher than some other coaches that I know in the industry, but
Mhm.
she's my person, so I'm gonna pay it every time, and I'm
Yeah.
okay with that because I love the results and the things that I get from her coaching program. So you just got to be careful about that. Pricing a product or service right below someone else's is not going to guarantee you numbers, and it's not going to siphon. And quite frankly, the people who are for you are for you, and so those people will be called by you when you quote unquote, as they say, sing your song or tell your story throughout your marketing and advertising. So those are some of the misconceptions. And I forgot the other part that you mentioned. I'm sorry.
Just the misconceptions and basically the challenges that entrepreneurs face when they're pricing their products and
Ooh,
services.
so the challenges that they face oftentimes is, again, not knowing their numbers properly, so not having the proper number. So there is a set. I use a formula for
Okay.
pricing. I use a full formula for pricing. And for me, that gives me correct pricing every single time. I don't have to think about it. I can just put the numbers where they belong, and that's it. And so, you have to think about pricing and overly. Here is the formula overly, because I think it's important to give people things that they can tangibly do on their own. If you need help, I got your back. But here it is. So pricing for me is your business operating expenses, because we talked about all of those expenses, right? Plus your profit margin, whatever that is for you. That's going to be different for different people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to divide that by how many of those products or services you're going to offer. That's going to give you your pricing each and every time. That's going to give you numbers. And so now you can look at those numbers, because you also should do research. Don't skip the research, y'all. Some of y'all just run into the numbers, just skip the research. Don't skip research. And now you look at those numbers and you can say, okay, I know what the break even is, because that's what break even for me is. Those numbers are my break even. I know what that is, because profit should automatically be into your numbers, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people teach profit on the other side. No, it should be in the numbers. But once you get that number, what you want to do is look at your research. Once you look at your research and you look at the numbers, is it higher? Is it lower? Is it out of the range really? Is it something like, somebody's going to spend $99 for a mug? Is that what we're doing? And do
Mm-hmm.
you have the foundation to sustain a $99 mug? Because that mug needs to do a lot of things if it sells for $99. And so, you know, figure out from there, what they what those numbers, how those numbers make sense. And once you do that, then you'll be fine in pricing. But again, it's just not, it's just numbers.
Yeah, it's just numbers. So I'm thinking, and I guess I'm going to use myself not as an example, but just
Mhm.
um, when it comes to pricing, and I don't necessarily know if this is for product-based businesses, but service-based businesses. How do you know if you charge monthly, or how do you know if you charge annually? How do you know what you should do when it comes to that?
Well, it just depends on the decisions. What I like to call your CEO decisions previously, because before you even get to the numbers of your business, you should also know your target market. You should also know their spending habits. You should do all of that work, because I'm gonna say this, and I
Say
don't
it.
know if you be like, Erica, you can never come back.
Look, we need people to be really honest with us because we're behind.
Sometimes we jump into entrepreneurship, we jump head first, and we didn't did no research, we didn't do no work, we don't know anything. We just out here, just jumping in. And because someone said, "Oh, just jump in and we'll figure it out," um, and and often gets one part of the scripture gets quoted quite often in this case, but God will figure it out, right? But I heard that prayer without work is dead, right? And so we got to do the work, and part of the work is the research. Part of the work is understanding who our target market is, who how do they like to pay for things, get an understanding of what their spending habits are. All of those things matter before you jump into business. But
Mhm.
now you're here, so here we are. We need to solve the problem of the pricing. So, I need you to go back and do the work, which is the research, figure out, what their spending habits are, how do they, what they're paying for right now, and some of that is just surveying your clients, prospective clients, and customers, and asking them about other programs that they're already paying for. People love to talk, and
Yeah.
they tell you almost everything you need to know if you sit down and you listen or you ask the right questions. And so, asking them, all of those questions. And even if you do a pool of a certain number of people, maybe you don't do 1 million people, but maybe you do 50, or maybe you do 100, or whatever the case is, and really figure that out. For me, numbers for product based businesses and service based businesses are the same. Honestly, it is. And because even I'm a service based business, and most people think, well, would this work with a service based business? Well, it works for me. I'm a service based business. But you have to decide that before we can get to pricing. Because here's the thing, we need to know when you're going to be getting paid. Revenue is a part of budgeting. So we need to know when the revenue is coming in. And the only way to know that is for you to decide, okay, I'm going to do a bundle, and I'm making this up, y'all, but I'm doing a quarterly offering. I'm gonna do that offering on a quarterly basis, and that's when my revenue is going to come in. And so I'm going to be able to look at my budget from a quarterly perspective. Once we know that's what you plan on doing, and then we can do the numbers. We can't do it the other way around. The numbers before deciding how it's going to work doesn't make sense, and it's going to lead you in this circle that's going to drive you crazy. So
Mm.
you have to make your CEO decisions first, and then we can do the numbers. So part of that again is the research. It's also figuring out what you actually want to do. How are you going to serve your people?
Awesome. Awesome. And you touched on this a little bit with survey and everything, but what other practical steps or exercises can entrepreneurs take to improve their pricing strategies?
So yeah, definitely surveying, because that's going to be critical. Um, I think for me, the practical steps is doing the work, right? So just going into those, take 30 days. This is what I tell my entrepreneurs. I'm tell y'all, look, is with this. Take 30 days, your last 30 days of expenses. And that means going into your bank account, your business bank account, hint, hint, your business bank account, please. y'all are with Cash App and all these other things. Your business bank account. But look for 30 days of your expenses. And so it'll show you exactly how much revenue that you're bringing in. I mean, excuse me, expenses that you're spending out in your revenue generating account. You should look for all the revenue. It's going to tell you how much revenue you're bringing in so that you can do your budget a lot quickly. Notice what I said. There's an expense account and there's a revenue generated account. Those two accounts are not the same. They shouldn't be the same. That's a gem for you. That was for free. I'm just going to
Yes.
that one.
Yes.
But you should definitely have those two separate accounts. But when you do, pull the reports for 30 days, and so that you can actually see how much revenue you're generating, how much expenses you're pulling out. And then once you have that, we can create a budget. We'll know exactly what you're pulling in, what you're pulling out, and then from there we can use that pricing um, that pricing model that I gave you earlier. Use that to create a price for every single thing that you sell. Now,
Mm.
some of you have a lot of things that you sell. I'd like you to condense them. But for those of you who have one to five would be great. But some of you have a lot of things that you sell, and the reason why you're probably selling a lot of things is because you don't have the pricing in a space that it needs to be. So you can take those things, and those are actionable items, and that's the quote unquote homework for you. I used to be a teacher a long time ago, but that's a quote unquote homework for you is to really figure out your numbers. Once you know your numbers, everything else gets much easier.
Whew, it's the numbers for me. It's the numbers for me. And like you said, sometimes we just don't want to look at it, but it's the things that we probably don't want to do that's probably going to set the best foundation for us being successful in our businesses. And I tell you, this entire year, I'll admit I have not really been focused on selling because I have been working behind the scenes to try to get everything in order foundationally. And it's amazing how things open up when you said it right. Because I'm not even selling, but it's selling. So it works out well. So tell us about the Real Money Talk Summit and Awards Brunch, please.
Yes, ma'am. I This is an annual Summit Awards brunch for me. I started this brunch and this event because I just felt like no one was talking about money. Everybody was talking about everything else. They were talking about empowerment. They were talking about, um, sisterhood. All of those things, and you should have all of those things. But I wanted people to talk about money so you can own your financial power in life and in business. because you could not be charitable if you're not profitable. And profitable can mean in your life and in your business. Your household is an entity, and it should be profitable as well. And so I started that. And so we have amazing, phenomenal speakers who are coming to crush the stage, um, from people who own mega networks to people who do group homes, and they're going to teach us how to get involved with that. If that's something you want to do. I'm going to be breaking down budgeting. I'm breaking down pricing all the way down to the floor. Don't break this thing down. I'm super excited about that. And then we also do this thing called power intentional networking. And what that means is we get to know you before the event happens, figure out who you need in your business and who needs you for their business. And we ensure that you meet at the summit, because sometimes we go to these events and the very person who can change our business for the better is in the room and we just don't meet them. And
Yeah.
it's not because we're bad people. It's just because either A, the room's too big, and so you just may not get to them, or B, we talking to folks who we familiar with. Y'all know what y'all be doing. I'm not going. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not getting on that soapbox. But but so we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna have our awards brunch. I hear Atlanta brunch is like no other. That's what I heard. I don't really know. I don't want to offend. Not that I don't know, but I don't want to offend. But anyway, brunch. And we're in nomination season in the moment. That's going to end quite quickly. But we're allowing everyone to nominate entrepreneurs, because yes, well, I could nominate a whole bunch of entrepreneurs. I know plenty of them. I just think that it's an amazing feeling to get an email from an organization that says someone thought enough of you and your business to nominate you and say that you were dope, right? I think that is a great feeling. I know it is, because I know how I felt when it happened to me. And so I want to make sure that we're nominating people, and not all the same people all the time. You know how that goes. It looks like the same folks. And so we are giving away 13 awards, and we're going to have a good time, and we're going to eat. And that's what's important to me.
And
I love
when is it? Tell us when it is.
April 20th, 2024, realmoneytalksummit.com. That's where you can get your tickets. And you can do in person is what we desire everyone to do, because we love to see you. But we do have the virtual option because we didn't want to leave out our international friends.
And you said it's in Atlanta.
Atlanta, Georgia. Yes.
Atlanta. So Atlanta,
Mhm.
come out. Let's go. And even if you are not in Atlanta, I know you can have some fun in Atlanta.
Mhm. Yeah, the one girl told me she's making the whole trip of this. Um,
and and it's a summit, so it's a tax write-off, right? Look, I love to say that.
Listen, what you do for your business. And again, I am not a tax accountant, but I can tell you that I write off uh, all summits, conferences, all of those things go directly to my accountant, and that includes travel, hotels,
Yeah,
meals.
yeah, making
Those
a
are some of the expenses.
development weekend, and
Mhm.
check out the Real Money Talk Summit. Now, let us know about the offer you have for us.
Sure. So the Profit BP workshop is a workshop where we dive deep into all things. Budgeting is next. I do these on a quarterly basis. They are there's one for planning, there's one for vendors, there's one for budgeting, there's one for pricing, and the next one is the budgeting workshop, and it is in deep. Is 90 minutes to 120 minutes. Kind of depends on your questions and answers, and I'm going to answer questions. So we're going to deep dive into this thing, and so we'll be able to really go deep, and you get a workbook as a part of this. I give you a roadmap, so you are crystal clear when you leave exactly what to do, and I also give you time to do work inside of the workshop, because we're not going to just listen to me talk. We're gonna get some work started, and so you get a full workbook. You get a roadmap. I give you a 30-day plan to really make sure that we're budgeting correctly and realistically in our businesses. So that is the profitbpworkshop.com, and you can register and get your ticket. I believe that next workshop is It's April 13th, I believe, if that's on top of my head. I don't remember, but it is in April.
All righty
Yep.
now. So look, you have the conference, the summit, and you have this workshop. Reach out to Erica, all things pricing, because we need to get this correct. This is one of the things that we definitely need to focus on when we're starting and trying to grow our business. Even if you're already in it and you're starting and you're not getting what you feel like you should be getting out of this, reach out to Erica. Do you have any last words for us, Erica?
A couple of things. Number one, I would say pricing is important even if you've already started your business, because we live in a world of raise your prices. You
Mm-hmm.
can't raise your prices until you understand whether or not the prices make sense of where they are. If they are something that you want to raise, you got to make sure that you're looking at pricing correctly before you start thinking about raising your prices, because the market may not warrant for that. So you have to be in that space where we know your numbers. And then I would just say, listen, go out there and have fun. Don't think to yourself that budgeting should be restrictive. It doesn't have to be when it's done with intention and is done correctly. It really can be freeing. I like to say that it can be the cure instead of the curse. Uh, that most people carry the B word with, right? And so that's all I would say to you. Have fun and make sure you're building businesses with integrity and intention, and you're going to be fine.
Integrity and intention. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll be seeing you again in a few more weeks as you guest host on the Bottom Black podcast. So cannot wait for that. Thank you for being here for another episode of the Barter Black podcast. I hope this information was inspiring. If you are interested in learning more about Barter Black, you can go to barterblack.io and see all the great things we are doing to empower Black entrepreneurs. If you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, now's the perfect time to hit the subscribe button, please. That
Yes.
way, you won't miss any of our future episodes filled with wisdom and inspiration. And I'm telling you, this episode was amazing. I mean, we are so dope. I just can't. We we're so amazing. Thank you for joining us today. And remember, your voice matters, your story inspires, and your success paves the way for future generations of Black entrepreneurs. Until next time, stay inspired and keep shining. Bye bye.